This is Your Anxiety Toolkit, episode number 183. Welcome to Your Anxiety Toolkit. I'm your host, Kimberly Quinlan. This podcast is fueled by three main goals. The first goal is to provide you with some extra tools to help you manage your anxiety. Second goal, to inspire you. Anxiety doesn't get to decide how you live your life. And number three, and I leave the best for last, is to provide you with one big, fat virtual hug. Because experiencing anxiety ain't easy. If that sounds good to you, let's go. Hello and welcome. I am so thrilled to have you with me. Today we are talking about the 5 best mindfulness tips I use for anxiety and depression. These are tools I use with all of my patients and clients, including myself, including my children too, to manage any symptoms of anxiety, hopelessness, depression, sadness, any emotion really. These are core mindfulness skills that I want to teach you because they are life-changing. So I'm going to get straight into them and I'm going to go through them pretty quickly, mainly because I really want this episode to be punchy and give you all the stuff you need so that you can get on with your day and have the best life that you want. So number 1 is observe. The skill of observing is super important, mainly because when you are alive, you wake up in the morning, your brain is on autopilot. It is going to think a whole bunch of things. It's going to have a whole bunch of thoughts, feelings, sensations, all of the stuff. And it's going to happen very, very quickly. And it's going to be often very, very confusing, particularly if you have anxiety. Anxiety tends to focus on the future. What if bad things happen in the future? Depression either tends to be reflection on the past or projecting that the future is going to be either hopeless, helpless, or that you are worthless moving into the future. So the skill of observing is this art of being able to catch that you're having a thought about something. So there is a difference. So let's say if you're depressed, you might say, there is no hope for me. If you're using the skill of observe, you would say, I'm having the thought that there is no hope for me. If you have anxiety and you have the thought, what if bad things happen? The skill of observing is to go, oh, I'm noticing I'm having the thought that bad things may or may not happen. So this skill of observing takes you out of taking these thoughts and feelings as if they're facts and treating them for what they are, which is their thoughts. Doesn't make them true. Their feelings doesn't make them true. They're important. They were worthy. You're not wrong for having them. But some thoughts aren't worth your time. Some thoughts aren't important enough for you to give them your attention. And so our skill here is to be able to observe them instead of taking them as fact. Now, the second skill is to be curious, right? We have a lot of thoughts and a lot of them aren't facts. I'm even willing to say that a lot of what we think and feel aren't correct, particularly, again, if you have anxiety and depression, particularly for those who are depressed. Depression lies. It tells you a whole bunch of lies, and your job is to be curious. Same with anxiety. Anxiety's job is to tell you of all the possible terrible things that could happen. And if you can be curious, you can actually change the narrative. So if, again, anxiety is saying bad things are going to happen or some variation of that, being curious is going, okay, maybe let's find out. Let's go about it and wait for it and be ready and prepared if needed, but hopefully not. And ultimately, the work here is to be curious instead of being very rigid and needing certainty. If you're depressed and your thought is bad thing, the world is bad or I am hopeless or there's nothing good for me, I'm not enough, you might be curious and widen your lens and ask, is that true? Are there people who enjoy my company? Is there evidence against this? Maybe I can challenge this a little bit and check if this is actually a true statement. So being curious helps us to be open and aware to other opportunities or possibilities. Number 3 is to leave judgment at the door. I would even say get rid of all the judgment. We don't need to be negatively judging things, and we do it all the time. We say this feeling is bad. We say this thought is wrong. I shouldn't be this way. I should look this way and not this way. I should be better. I should be working harder. I am not enough. This feeling is the worst, right? And these types of judgments only create more problems. I always say to my patients and clients, if you have an emotion that is painful, that is one problem. If you judge it as bad, now you have two problems. That is a lot of a heavier load than you really need at this time. So try your best not to be judgmental. Now, what I'm not suggesting is you say, I love this feeling is fabulous, because that's not true either. Instead, you can go, I'm observing that I'm having a feeling that makes me uncomfortable, or this feeling is different to how I normally would feel, instead of saying this feels weird, right? It's really bringing you to a place of being objective, right? And that's super important, particularly if you're managing depression and anxiety. Now, the fourth thing to remember is to be present. Bring your attention to now. Look at the leaves. Oh my goodness, the sun is shining on them. What do they look like? What do they feel like? Look at this grass. Look at this keyboard. What does that feel like? What does it smell like? What does it taste like? Really get aware, and again, be curious about the present moment, not the past or the future. Again, anxiety is all about the future. And what don't we have control of? The future. Most people will agree that mindfulness, being present in the moment with non-judgment, is where joy seeps in. There's very little joy in if you're spending this moment thinking about the future or the past. So do whatever you can to bring your attention back. If you have an intrusive thought, bring your attention back. If you have an intrusive feeling, bring your attention back to the present moment. It doesn't matter if you have to do this a million times. That's okay. That's what being a human is all about. But anytime you can do that, you're actually strengthening your mindfulness muscle instead of strengthening your compulsive or avoidant or depressive muscle. And that, oh my goodness, that is recovery, and that is wonderful. And oh my goodness, such a huge step in the direction of recovery. Now, the fifth and last mindfulness tip that I have for you is to catch the stories you tell yourself. Now, this is very similar to the idea of catching the judgment, but be very careful about the stories you tell yourself. The example that I often use with this one is, I can't handle it, or I can't. I've done whole podcast episodes on this before. When you tell yourself the story that I can't handle this, or in America, you would say, I can't handle this. I am Australian, but I live in America. If you tell yourself that, the chances are you won't do it, right? Now, again, I'm not suggesting that you flip to all positivity, because that may feel inauthentic. But what you can do is you can reframe it to statements like, I can do hard things. I can tolerate discomfort for short periods of time. I have tolerated it in the past, and therefore I can tolerate hard things. Use evidence of the past to help you with this. A lot of the stories we tell ourselves, really, more than treatment and the skills and the tools, the stories can be what interferes with people's recovery. If you're depressed and you tell yourself the stories that this depression will never go away, that story in and of itself will make you feel hopeless. And when we feel hopeless, we get more depressed. So these skills, these wise applications, are so important in helping us manage our long-term wellness, whether you have anxiety or depression or not. Even at times when I don't have anxiety or depression, I'm still practicing these skills, because they're like doing mental push-ups. The more you do of it, the stronger you feel, and the more it's sort of like an insurance policy against mental illness. It's so, so important. Now, I'm going to give you one bonus tip, and it's not a mindfulness tip, but it is a self-compassion tip, which is be gentle. Drop your expectations on how well you're going to do this, because the chances are you're going to suck at them to start. And that is okay. That is because everybody sucks at these skills to start. Or if you're like myself, I have been practicing these for a very long time and I still would say I kind of suck at them. And that is all right. All I want to do is keep bringing myself to self-compassion and recognizing that this is not a race. That every day when I do a small thing, I should celebrate that and go about back to my skills, right? I don't need to sit and ruminate on how well I am using my skills or not. That in and of itself, again, is not helpful. So I hope that these skills have been helpful for you. Let me know if they have or not. And I'm so grateful to have you be a part of cbtschool.com. If you enjoyed this, please do leave us a review on either Apple Podcast apps or Spotify or wherever you listen. Your reviews mean so much to me. We are giving away a free pair of Beats headphones to one lucky reviewer once we reach 1,000 reviews. Please go and leave an honest review, and I would just be so grateful. The more reviews we get, the more people are likely to listen, and that means I can help more people. So go ahead and do that. Have a wonderful day. You know I'm going to say one thing right now, which is the thing I say at the end of every episode, which is it is a beautiful day to do hard things. Every single day, we should try to lean in, do the thing that scares us. That is how we get strong. That is how we get courageous and live the life we want to live. Have a wonderful day, everybody. I'll see you next week. Please note that this podcast or any other resources from cbtschool.com should not replace professional mental health care. If you feel you would benefit, please reach out to a provider in your area. Have a wonderful day, and thank you for supporting cbtschool.com.